Hi, welcome to Ranger Garage. I'm glad you found our channel. On this channel, you're going to learn a lot about vehicle maintenance. We're going to show the everyday person how to work on classic vehicles, modern day vehicles, things that you can do yourself instead of paying, hundreds and thousands of dollars, hundreds and or thousands of dollars to mechanics and other shops. We'll teach you some customization, some modernization stuff. I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about the work that we've done, maybe it wasn't clear, feel free to email us at rangergarage@gmail.com. Hope you enjoy.
Hi, welcome back to Ranger Garage. On today's episode, we are going to talk about air conditioning systems. We're going to use our project car, our '89 Ford Bronco, 5.8 liter fuel injection. We are going to do a couple of different steps. The first step is we're going to vacuum the system. You're going to want to do this every time you change out the refrigerant to make sure you get in all the moisture and that there's no excess refrigerant in there. You want to clear out the system prior to charging the system. It's a simple process. It's just simply remembering where the hoses are, which goes to where, simple stuff. The second thing that we're going to do is after we vacuum the system, we're going to check to make sure the system is holding a vacuum, to make sure that it's leak proof. This is kind of all almost in the same step. And then once we're comfortable with that, then we will charge the system. So if you'll stand by, we will walk you through this. I'll show you all the equipment you need, how to get from point A to point B, and get you on the road. So here we have our '89 Ford Bronco 5.8 EFI system. And we're going to first identify a couple different things. First of all, you're going to have to identify where your high side and your low side port are. On these 80s and 90s Ford trucks and Broncos, most, if not all of them, are pretty much in the same place. So your low side is right here on the accumulator, and your high side is right here next to the radiator. Okay, it is also the larger cap. Now, the first thing you have to do is set up a vacuum. And how do we do that? Well, first thing is we've got our manifold system. I borrowed this from O'Reilly's. You can get it from O'Reilly's, AutoZone, so on and so forth. They're pretty simple. And the other thing you'll need is the vacuum pump. Now, those two items will help you, A, vacuum out the system, B, check the system for leaks, and then C, charge the system. So I'm going to hook these up, and then we'll get started. Okay, so next thing we have to figure out is how to put on these connectors. It's actually pretty simple. If these are turned counterclockwise, these are closed. These are spring-loaded, and they come off just like that, and they go back on just like that, and then they're locked into place. The high side was a little more tricky, as you kind of saw with that one. Just got to make sure it's seated, which we've already done. Here we are with the system. I've got these, I think, closed down. We'll find out here in a second. We've got the connection to the pump. The blue line obviously is the low line, and that goes over to the low side. The red line goes all the way over to the high side, and this yellow line goes all the way over here to the pump, the top of the pump. First we need to open these up or else it's not going to pull anything. And to open these up, you turn these clockwise, and these are the valves on the vehicle, the high and the low side. Now we will turn this on, and if you look at the gauge, nothing's happened because the gauges are closed. Now we will open these up, and what we're looking for is to see that this pressure actually creates a vacuum. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, so we are now pulling a vacuum. Good little catch, so I wasn't paying attention. I had the secondary cap on the vacuum off, and so it was just pulling air through there and it wasn't touching the system. So So maybe you saw that on the video, maybe you didn't. But we are now pulling somewhere around 25 PSI in the negative. I'm going to let this run for a couple of minutes, and then we are going to get a good vacuum, and then we're going to shut these down, and I'll show you what they look like here. We're going to shut this down. If you notice, we're here at 25. I'm going to see if I can get it to 30. I'm going to give it about 5 minutes. Then I'm going to tighten these down and lock them down. And then we're going to hold to make sure that the pressure holds for roughly about 40 minutes. Then we're going to come back and we're going to turn the vacuum back on, and we're going to have it vacuum for a good hour. So don't concern yourself with how long it's pumping. The system is designed for this because you're supposed to vacuum this thing for at least a good hour. Now we are quickly approaching the 30, so I'm going to give this a little bit longer here, and once it gets to that, I'm going to shut it off. Okay, we are holding steady at 30, so I am now going to shut these down. Lock these down tight, and then shut this off. And I'm going to set the timer for 40 minutes. I'm going to set a timer for 40 minutes to make sure that we hold the vacuum. It's been about an hour. As you see, the gauge has not moved one bit. So now we are going to reactivate the system, and we're going to continue to pull a vacuum for about 45 minutes. Now, the first thing we do is we come over here to the pump. We turn the pump on, and then we open the valves. Remember, we left these already open, and so we're going to let this run for about 45 minutes. Good time to go do whatever you got to do and come back. Hey, welcome back to Ranger Garage. So we're going to finish up this air conditioning system. We have already evacuated the system, tested for leaks, and we have continued the vacuum to make sure all moisture and everything's out of the system. The next thing we have to do is fill the system up. So what happens is you leave everything connected. Right now, all the gauges are shut, so the vacuum is sealed. And then we're going to fill our system with this Arctic Freeze refrigerant. This is supposed to have it's synthetic, which means it won't expand and contrast like the other natural 134A does. And supposedly that helps keep this system cooler to allow you to have a little more cold inside the car. That's really good here in Arizona. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this thing set up, and we're going to disconnect it from the yellow line from the vacuum pump, connect this to it, and get started. And I'll walk you through that process. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is make sure you're wearing gloves and eye protection. And you put your cap on top of your refrigerant. Make sure it's screwed all the way out so you don't accidentally bust it loose. You don't want that coolant, one, escaping. The stuff's expensive, but two, also you don't want to get it in your face, your eyes, anything like that. You're definitely going to need a Phillips head screwdriver to use the purge valve. A little hole right here, right above the yellow line on the center, to get air out of the line prior to starting the system. So right now everything is shut down. They're open on the vehicle. Those valves are open. They are shut here. We are going to disconnect the yellow line from our vacuum pump. Make sure you put the cover back on the Schrader valve on the vacuum pump. And I recommend, just so you don't have any problems, go ahead and wrap this bad boy up and put it back in the box, so you can return that back. To, in this case, O'Reilly's. Next, we'll need to screw this on This is the yellow line. Screw the yellow line onto the canister. Okay. Remember, hand tight. Now I use a stool that I have to keep it right here in front of the vehicle, so that some people say put it on a cool spot on the engine. I think that's just asking for trouble. If you got a stool, use it. That's perfect. These bigger vehicles, it's much easier to do that anyway. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is we'll get this tightened down here and here. Everything's tight, right? Then we will screw this down and puncture the can. Now, just in case, I'd keep it away from you. And you'll want to screw it all the way down, because what that does is not only does that puncture the system, or puncture the can, it seals it, so it's closed. Okay, the next thing you'll want to do is you come up to the system, keep these shut, all right? And you get that center valve here, right? And you'll need to be able to do that, okay? And be careful that doesn't hit you in the face. Now, right now, it's fine because this is in the closed position. That was not Freon, that was just air inside the line that just came out. Could have been someone's previous system, whatever. But you need to make sure you purge that prior to putting it into the system. So, the next thing we will do is we will open this up. And you'll open it up full blast. Don't unscrew it all the way. There's a limit. So what you'll end up doing, and I'm just keeping this away from me, is I'm pushing right here. Okay. That should, we'll get one more time. Okay, that should be the Freon coming out of it. All right, I will now open the systems. Now, on this, you only open the low side. So I'm only gonna open the blue side. Okay? And now, I'm gonna get in and crank up the vehicle. Up the vehicle, what you'll have seen is the pressure gauge, when you first put it in, spikes on the low side. Once you turn on the air compressor, that eventually will start dropping back down. Pressure should be based on your current temperature. Here it's about 95 degrees, and so I'll take a look at that, and we got to get about 50 to 55 pressure on the low side. So as you can see, the gauges, they're fluctuating as we're listening to the compressor kick on and off. And until that becomes solid, that pressure's not going to stabilize. Okay, so a little issue I had, changing out the cans. I wish I'd have shown you that. On the older cans, you just were able to screw it back in, leaving it sealed. The problem is I was concerned that it was going to puncture it, and I was right. Fortunately, these new cans have like a second seal to them or whatever, and I was able to get everything on. But it was kind of a mess. So make sure you back off that screw before you screw on the new one, and then do a purge again. That's what I did, just to make sure no air gets in the system when you're adding the second can. Looks like my compressor is on full blast now, and so we'll keep an eye on it. We got to get up to 50 to 55 pounds of pressure on the low side, and we'll take it from there. Okay, another thing to think about, a little safety precaution, is after you disconnect all the hoses from the vehicle, watch the hoses, try to hold on to one end and then open the other to allow that extra stuff to vent out. If you just vent it, it'll start flopping around, and if you pop it loose in here and you're not wearing glasses or something like that, you get it in your face. Once you've done that, then you can disconnect all these hoses. Should not have any problems. And then repack it back up and then return it back to wherever you got it. All right. Thank you. By the way, the air conditioner is working just fine, and hope you learned something. Thanks for joining Ranger Garage.